God is a great God, a wonderful God, who is the same yesterday, today, and forever. Our circumstances, our problems, our challenges cannot change God. And even though you cry and you do everything, the only thing God responds to is His word and faith. Amen? Some people think they cry and they feel sorry for themselves, God is going to do something for them. You need to have faith in God. You need to know His word. You need to believe His word. And as you do that, He will respond to His word. God only responds to His word. Not to your feeling sorry and your crocodile tears. God will respond to those things. But in the same time, He still is a good and wonderful God. Who will never forsake you, who will never leave you, who will never forsake you, who will be with you always, and He will do whatever He says He will do. You will do. So He's a God you can depend on. He's not like the other gods. He is the real God. Amen? Praise the Lord. We serve a great God. Praise the Lord. You can maybe see it.
Praise God. Good night again, and let me join Brother Frankie in welcoming you here tonight. And specifically, we have Portsmouth, we have the youth leader, and your team. We are very pleased that you are here with us tonight. We are pleased we have Sister Ben, my friend, she's here. We want to welcome you. Those from Faith Center that have been here for all the previous nights, and Miss Mona, we welcome you. I thank you, my daughter Shania, and your husband, and the Bushi, we welcome you, and we are very pleased that you're here. So tonight, as we spoke last night, and I have been saying, whole goal of the family seminar was to empower families for us to be able to deal with the challenges of life. And we did, for the past 2 nights, we focused on the issues of stress management, conflict. And I know sometimes young people say that stress is not for them, they think stress is something of the older generation, but young people do go through stress based on what we discussed. We also spoke about mental health, and one of the things I mentioned is that a recent survey that was done, young people did say themselves that one of their number one problem was mental health, and especially after the COVID, some persons still complain of not having that kind of stability that they had before COVID. So we mentioned those things, but we spoke last night about building resiliency, and we did clarify that resilience is not maybe ignoring the fact that you're going through problems or you're having pressures, but it is building the skills to be able to address those things that are affecting you. So tonight, what we are going to be zeroing on, we said, is the youth impact, and trying to see how the gap, the generation gap that we speak about all the time. We know that the young people are saying that there is a generation gap, that the older adults or the young adults and older persons, they do not understand their perspective, and they are judging them, they give more correction and guidance. And the older people are saying on the other end that they feel that young people are not connected to them. So there is indeed a gap. But one of the things that we are learning also is that both generations, they have their own stresses. The older generation, that is our group, the adults, they have different stresses than you, the young persons. And the older persons, they're looking for survival. They are thinking of the mistakes that the young people will make that they cannot correct. This is not your head, so much you would not even think of the mistakes. Sometimes young persons will not think of how the mistakes affect their lives or their older family members. But the parents and the older persons, they have the fear of their children or their significant others making mistakes that cannot be erased. And the older persons at this time, we mentioned some of them last night, financial hardship. Just to survive is harder than before. So that is the problem of the older generation. Just making sure that they have money to send children to school. We know the testimonies of some persons during the course of the week that we're talking, how difficult it was to just send their child to school. But the child is just thinking, I did a bachelor's and I must go straight to a master's, not thinking that it is a pressure for the parents to get it. Now on the other hand, the young persons, they have their stress, which is kind of distant from the stresses that we see the elderly people go through or the older adults go through. Our young persons right now, the options are much more, the voices are louder than before. When we were raised as, and I think panelists will discuss about it, but just to give a little snapshot. When we were raised, it was a community raising a child. So your parents you would not even go back to your parents to say somebody corrected you on the road or give you a little snap on your shoulder because they would have told you, do not come with that story. Now it's different. We are raising children in a different environment. And I always say, maybe because we are judgmental of the young people, their generation is not like our generation. So we are trying to make them be like us. But the generation in which we were brought up is far distant and different than what they have been faced with. So one of the things, the issues that we see the young persons today are really having problems, the whole culture that the social media promotes, that the more likes you get is the more valuable you are. And if you put on a post and you are not liked or you are disliked, it affects your esteem because you start to think your validation should be from the external. And this has led some persons to move from their communities because you felt that you were not liked in the community, even move from your country, but the problem still exists other places. And then you have to be validating yourself because of external forces, whereas you have it within you to determine what you should be. Now we have the whole thing about academic expectation. Everybody expects you to be a nurse or teacher to do well, but you will not have the ability or you do not feel that you can do. So you have your pressures. The young persons have, that generation have their own issues. Cyberbullying is a big thing now. I don't know how bad it is in Dominica, but it is bad to the point where some people take their lives because they will be bullied and told things and harassed and stuff like that. So that generation has its issue. Our older generation have their own issue, trying to survive, having financial health issues, worries about their children, some of them lost their spouses, retirement. All these are the issues that we face. But there is a gap. Communication. Actually, the communication between the young and the older, we know that communication link has been weakened. And I'll tell you, because when I was raised, we could sit down with our elderly people, family, and play dominoes, play cards. You would have some games and talk and go on the roadside, and you would feel comfortable. No, if you would have to take your young person, there's a group of, or maybe they would call us old or elderly people playing a game, they'll say that's not for them. So that is a different generation. Your generation now is a fast-paced generation, it's a microwave generation, and we will discuss those things tonight, that everything you want, you feel that you're pressured to have it now, whereas with our older generation, we took time to build even our wealth, whatever our career. So tonight's conversation is not a matter of who is right, whether the young people are right in whatever they propose, that young, we do not have a problem, it's the older people that don't listen to us, and neither is this a problem where we're not looking to see who wins. We are just going to have an open discussion. We will have 4 panelists, and I will just be asking some very simple questions that come out all the time, even from discussions, from young people, from older people, and then we will just be honest. I would ask the panelists offended because of what you say. So that is the ground rule. You have 2 minutes to make your point and the questions that will be asked, but you kind of give your perspective and then you allow the other person. Now, if you're up there and somebody says something, you can either add to what the person is saying, and if there's a new point that you want to attach to it, you say it. Now, I said tonight, the reason why I really want young people to be sitting up here, I know as a director for human development that our young persons keep saying all the time, anything that is for them must include them. If they are not included in whatever, then it's not really for them. So we think that you are very resourceful, and if we continue ignoring the gap between the adults and the young, we will not be doing justice to ourselves. Because guess what? One thing, the young persons, they will not be able to benefit from the wealth and wisdom, wealth of information and the wisdom that the elderly people have, the whole culture and heritage. Can you imagine if everybody knew our culture and died, then how would the young persons pass it on? So you would be losing that. But the older generation also, if we do not fix up the gap, what will happen is that you will miss the vitality that the young people have without having. It doesn't matter how much you want to, you cannot really compete with the young people. And when you have them, they bring that kind of freshness, innovativeness, they have things they do different, and actually they can teach us. So I'm thinking and expecting from this seminar, especially tonight, we would have a group of people that would be willing to even be mentor, and people would be willing to assist, and instead of being judgmental, that we will be able to come to a common ground, that we all have issues, and there is a gap, but we will try to see if we can get away. And that will be coming from you, the crowd, and from the panelists. Is that okay with you? Thank you very much. So at this time, I'm going to call the panelists. I will just introduce Shania Roye. I think everybody will have and get your seat at the front. Shania is my daughter, and she's a young professional. I caught her by surprise. When we had two persons drop off, I told her you cannot come from Penn. They went to school in Vegas and not be able to. She's a young professional. She's a lawyer by profession, and she does both business and human rights. So I think she knows even more than me about the whole issue of what can affect young people. So let us give Shania a round of applause. We have as a community man, a church man, a parent, and I know he has raised young people, he has worked with young people, especially in church, and now of us sharing our church because I think he's very poised to bring to the fore some of the experiences he has in the past and how he will intend to support young people in the church and in the community. So let's welcome Brother Franklin. We have Mr. Roye. Come in, Mr. Roye. Can you come at the front? Alright, Mr. Roye. Mr. Roye Shamarue is no stranger either. He is an educator. As you would have known, he was he's a retired school principal, and he worked in that very same community for many years. He also carries different hats. He pastors, preaches, counsels people, and he too has led youth ministries for how many years. So I know he has an informed perspective of the issues both on the young and not too old. So I think that he has wisdom that he can transfer to us tonight. So let us make welcome Mr. Roye. We have two beautiful ladies. Let me see if I have the name. We have Adisha Langley, who is the youth leader from Portsmouth. Adisha, you can come at the front, please. Adisha is a young, brilliant, as you can say, young woman that knows God, and most important, she's she's already in leadership. So as I said to her tonight, she's filling a gap, but the gap that she's already filling in a post. Because just being in charge of young people, I think she is in a better place than even those of us here to be able to talk to some of the issues or respond to some of the issues that young people go through. We have Sherry Alexander with another young woman, very comfortable, and they are very, I don't know. So I really want to welcome the panel tonight. Let us just give them again another round of applause. I'm not sure if mic just moved. Okay, so I think I've spoken to the rules already. And I told my husband I will challenge him first. But I give him limitation because you know he talks quite a bit. So I am rounding him to 2 minutes first. So first, even before we start asking the questions, Mr. Roy, just to give me your views on the whole generation gap that we speak about. Do you think that there is really a gap between the young and the older generation? And one reason why you think there is a gap?
Yeah, well, good evening, everyone. Thanks, Madam Moderator, Chairperson. I'm happy to be here tonight as people and with participants in this discussion. To address or answer your question, I am definitely of the view that there is a gap between, or a generation gap between the adults and the youth. Tonight I want to present a perspective that is Bibleist, and to bring to the fore the fact that we are here tonight to learn, not to criticize or to just do another agenda, another activity, but that we should be able to glean from the discussions that we make together, agree to disagree, but at the same time let it be a learning experience for all of us. Okay, so from my perspective, I believe, yes, that there is a gap, and if you were to, there are different definitions for the generation gap, but simply put, the generation gap is the differences in values, in behaviors, and attitudes between people of different age ranges, alright? And they often refer to it as the generational cohort. Alright, we all know what a cohort is. It's a group. And so tonight my perspective would be to share a little on the fact that we have a group of people that stand smack in the middle of two other important groups. Because if you refer to the youth would be the young people, then you have children, and then you have what we call adults. Now there is not a defined line or a drastic line drawn between who is a youth. Sometimes I remember when I was a pastor, we used to refer to our youth up to 35 years and from a church, we used to call it Christ ambassador. So everybody below 35 years, or who is not a child, would be considered to be youth. So what I want to look at is that group of the middle class in the generation, the middle group in the generation, who are physically strong, emotionally able, and have the capacity and the ability to carry out specific functions to enhance the generation and to bring about, the desired results in society and in humanity as a whole. My nutshell.
Thank you very much. I will ask Anisha to just give me your views. Do you believe that there is the same question goes to everybody in the first question?
Good night, everybody. I do believe that there is a generation gap, especially when it comes to communication. The way that the older people will communicate, that's not how we the young people communicate now. There's different slangs, text, the way we speak. So my main point would be communication.
Okay, good. Communication. Alright?
Good night, Sherry Alexander once again. I also believe that there's a gap, and I believe that this is due to a difference in value. The older generation would have had to work hard for everything. You know, you always hear stories when I was your age, I had to, for example, cross the river, or I didn't have a microwave. So the values, the older generation would have values that would help shape them and mold them, right? So they would not want to pass on that hard life to the children. So the children now have a softer life. With that softer life, we don't have the same values because everything would have been handed to you to a certain extent. So you can actually relate to the things that the older generation would have gone through. So that is one of the reasons why I believe that there is a gap. Because right now, as I said, softer life. So the things that you will be interested in, the things that you will be focused on will be different from generation to generation.
Thank you. Very good point. Thank you very much.
Okay, good night. I almost want to share the same perspective that she shared. I think the gap, we can look at it from different generations, different settings, the way we grow up and the way young people are growing up now. There's a vast difference. Nothing close to what we knew. As you rightly mentioned, we had to create things for ourselves. We had to create our games. We had to go to the river for water. Right? We had to go to the garden. We had to do things that young people know it's foreign to them. Real foreign to them. Actually, the kind of foods that they get. Young people know who want to go to the manufactured stuff. So there's really a gap. There's no doubt about it. We think differently. I have young children myself. When I speak to Jerome, he's somewhere and I am on the other. I just have to sometimes stay quiet and listen. Because he thinks he knows it all. And I also think educationally, young people now, they are more open to knowledge than we were then. You see, we had to read books, but now they are the internet and they get everything.
Yeah.
We had to look for an encyclopedia to get information, but now everything is at the tip of their heads. So there is definitely a really large gap as to how we're going to marry them and get it together. I'm not able to show you.
Thank you so much, and
I feel very
satisfied. I can project my voice very loudly. Good to see everyone. I think the perspective I have is much different. Can you hear me? Okay, that's fine. Maybe one perspective I have that hasn't been mentioned before is with regards to the challenges between different generations. So I'm a millennial. I challenges of mental health is a different, even I consider myself slightly older, but the way that I respond to a challenge, a difficult situation, is entirely different. So we have an entire team of experts that provide mental health advice, and we get mental health wellness days, and so dealing with those are very, very different. And I think if you are from a different generation, although it might be close very far, you might not appreciate why someone, for example, needs a mental health rest day. If you just come from a generation where there's no depression, there's no anxiety, there's no medication, there's just life goes on. So yeah, I definitely see that there's a gap. Thank you very much. Anybody from the audience that would have any points on that before we move to the second person? I think we got some very good perspective with about communication. The fact is everybody think, and I think the point from Shania, and you can see the age group you really, they're different from each other, but you could see the same circulation of the same thoughts, right? So it tells you that there is a vast difference. Any questions, Sister Benj? Yes.
I think let's start from my perspective. The fact that I don't generation gap should not be seen as something negative or something challenge and drawing, because I believe in every era, the state of time, there has always been a gap. When I was going to high school, my mother said it's her time, didn't have to do things. Yeah, and I was wondering where she coming from. And I remember my dad taking a lamp after me when I was doing religion. So there was a gap, and that gap will always be there. The question is how do we handle the gap, deal with it, we work around it to bring some level of comfort, some level of peace,
Agreement in a different way.
I'm setting the home, but the gap in the home, the gap in the school as well, and everywhere else. So the key here is what do I have to know to deal with this, or let's say I have a home. I have one age 30 something, then I have an age 26. And it's like 20 because 26 came home and there was nobody home. Okay, one time there was nobody home, so he would open the fridge and eat everything in there. But today is the 38 plus and the 40 still asking, so can I get something to say?
Yes.
And he had a
Yes.
he was sitting there. But they grew up learning to answer but he didn't grow up doing that and everything. That's not correct. If we are stupid, it's a God. Fathers, the Father, and it's all we and learn to be happy and peaceful. That's all.
Excellent, excellent, excellent. Thank you so much. But as anybody else, I want to hear the young people even. Anything for you must include you. So we have included you. I want to hear your views. Anything, even if you're not at the front, you can contribute. Anything you would want to add to what we're saying? Yes? You said yes? Okay, okay. Go ahead. Yes, just speak.
It's okay. Good night, everybody. I do believe that there is a generation gap between the young people and the old people. But in my perspective, what I see is that the games that the old people usually play, like dominoes and whatnot, some of the young people do revisit them because it's interesting in a sense. So I do believe there is a generation gap, and then I know there is a way to fix that generation gap between both of us so that we can come to one solid conclusion.
Good. So solution. So I guess solution. We have identified that there is a gap, and we will be waiting for us to see how we can bring some solution. Very good. Any more questions or comments? And we go to the second question. I will start with Shania first. We're going to do it again now. Shania, I know that there's always been the fact that young people actually that the youth need guidance or correction?
Oh, that's a good one. I think guidance is always is a better word than correction. I think particularly it may come across in the UK in particular. There's a huge gap between what the baby boomers were able to afford. So every baby boomer just has a house.
When you say baby boomer, baby
So baby boomers are my parents' generation. So what they could afford
I don't think it's a choosing of whether it's guidance or correction. I think you have to mix them a little bit because the younger generation, we normally like extremely curious. We always want to know why. So if you just give them correction and tell them you have to do that or you have to do this, we want to know why should we do it? Why would we do that instead of doing this? If we just tell us to do it, sometimes we won't listen or we won't want to listen because we just hey, we're supposed to do that. We don't know why we're supposed to do that. So the older people or the older generation, they used to their parents tell you to do this, you're not supposed to question it. But we want to question everything. We want to know why, we want to know how, we want to know everything about it. So if you just give us correction, we're not going to want to listen to it. So I think you should mix a bit of guidance and correction to it.
Very good. Anybody else? Anybody else? I like to hear the men, yes. Anybody else? Okay. Yes, Sister Ben, go ahead.
I think that we need to be able to define and differentiate between correction and guidance. And then to move from there, because how do you define? How do you explain guidance and how do you explain correction? What's the difference between the two? And if you go back to the scripture, as Mr. Roy seemed to be leaning towards the scripture, the word correction appears several times where it says no correction in itself is seen as being good, but it reaps positive results. So the word correction cannot be thrown out the window or seen as a bad thing. As the young lady was saying, is maybe how you do it, and the intention. Is it selfish from your end? You're correcting the child because you are angry or so, or you're correcting because you want change, positive change. So we need to define those two terms, I think.
And I also think just to add, is it because we are speaking from a position of authority? Because parents sometimes just think because you are the authority in the house that you sometimes even before listening, and that is the other part of it. Have you listened to the part what they're saying? And sometimes just because you're the authority doesn't give you the right to just say, oh, you should not do that, even we don't
young people than stress itself. Because that's just stress as well. You know, because young people lose so much. Actually, one of the things you hear like over the older generation is like everything that happens, they will tell you young people say. Like the young people run on everything. I don't share everything. I rarely do share everything. I believe young people have challenges.
Stress can affect.
Yeah, but stress levels of the
Sherry, running that one?
Well, yes, definitely. Because,
And you can share some examples, right? Maybe to interact with this.
I say yes, definitely, because you are of your environment. So if it is that you are stressed, there is no way, and especially as a young, let's say, for example, if you're a young person, your brain is still developing, you're still developing who you are, finding who you are as a person. So you may not, that person may not be able to decompartmentalize, the stress of what you live there, when you leave the house and interact with persons, you are happy, you are social, you are empathetic, you are able to actually engage with other persons on a normal level. So yes, stress at home definitely affects the way you actually interact. Thank you very much.
Just to pivot on what Sherry said, I do believe that stress alone affects the youth. Speaking from a work environment or school environment, it can affect your concentration. You'll be in the present place, so whether you go to school and your mind on what happened before you left the house. And that just affects your entire productivity throughout the day, and it also affects your communication as well. You don't know how to say how you feel, or to express what you're going through. You just be like, it is what it is, or you know already. So it's like it affects your concentration, your mind, the way to speak, and we just need to fix that. Not separate the both, but be able to manage it. Because at the end of the day, it still will be there, but we just have to manage it and balance it.
Yes.
You mentioned an example. So right now, I have two children who are in primary school, right? I'm aware of the situation with a particular child. I'm assuming it's a stressful environment because, from what I understand, he does not have much parental guidance or very present. I'm a teacher?
Yes.
I am not.
I'm not a teacher.
the different perspectives from an adult perspective and from a young person's perspective. Because an adult sees life from a different angle, otherwise. So, I do not want you to interact and associate with a certain group of people or friends, but to you, those are my bodies. These are the people who are close to me. I do not want you to participate and get involved in certain activities, for example, sexual relationship. To a child who has been exposed, and as you know, there is an overload of misinformation and disinformation, especially in our day of, social media. Misinformation and disinformation, there is an overload. And even that is a serious problem, that children who are at a very young age, or maybe not children, but young persons, as somebody was like to say, they cannot analyze, they cannot disaggregate, they cannot, bring to a head what is being offered. You have adult, you have cyberbullying, you have, all sorts of sexual content, you have hero worship, you understand? Who does a young person want to be their hero may not be what the adult wants you to be. Michael Jackson, you follow Michael Jackson, or do you follow, one of them, Snoop Dogg, or whatever it is, you understand? And do I listen to, what kind of music do I listen to? So that already is a stressor to have that infighting, within a young child or a young person who has not developed all the capacity, who has not been able to analyze and disaggregate and to, interact adequately with, all the content that is out there. So yes, you will definitely carry that stress at home, and that stress can even affect your performance at school to the point that young people can become, mothers. They have teenage pregnancy, so you have a lot of social issues and social ills that as a result of the stresses that we all, not only the young people, but we all go through on a daily basis.
Okay, young people, doing very well. Any other questions from the person side? Well, let me take this opportunity to express our pleasant surprise and welcome to Pastor Eddie and Sister Eddie, Sister Kathy. Thanks for coming. We really appreciate your presence, and your team are doing very good. Although they will call it very good. Very, very good. All right. So we are understanding that stress affects the young people, and it is good to hear from the young people because sometimes, as I said I think last night, people commit suicide sometimes not because they really want to kill themselves, but they don't think that they are good. If we would just stop being judgmental and just listen to what they're saying, they may not always have it right, but at least listen before we judge. Judgment sometimes it doesn't help us. Anything else from you, Sister Benjamin? I always bring from those persons, bright people, principal, who have worked with children, mothers, several professionals themselves, that you would tell me some of the things that you would maybe say to a young person that is going through stress at home, how they could manage it and really still, make a difference for you. Yes, right? Because there is stress.
The question is, what role are the adults in the home played in the stress that your person is going through? Because home, we don't want to make it appear that stress there is that stress that makes you get things done, right? But the stress that frustrates to the point where you are mad at the teacher, you're mad on the bus, you're mad, it's not the stress you want, because that means something at home is cultivating and feeding that thing and making it what it is on the outside. So I think education, parents and adults, older siblings who have younger ones, need to be educated about how to make the home the kind of place that produces young people who will go through stress. Yes, your boss might demand something, you have a health issue, your boyfriend left you, and things like that. But they should at least have that capacity to handle certain things and live in a society where they make an impact and not become a problem. So there is one book I read, Living the Lights On, and it talked about the 4 personalities and so. And many of us who got married and have children, we knew nothing about raising children. We raised them the way we were raised. You know, the first thing your mom picks up is the broom or the book or the cover or something, or they shout or they call you names and use bad language and so on. But I think Christ makes the difference. And whatever homes we have now, the homes, the ideal home, or there's no ideal home, but the homes that can really produce children who, young people who can cope, are either homes where the parents have knowledge of raising children, or Christian homes that have God on their side. So there are things I would have done. I'm looking back at one of my children, and I'm saying, I need to apologize. I don't know how to do it yet. He's grown. Because I raised him in a way, Mr. Roy can tell you, that is so different from how I raised Gavin. And I'm looking back, did I have to beat him all the time? Did I have to do that? Did I have to, demanding good grades all? How could I do that? But I can only see that now, nearly 40 years, 23 years later. So I made mistakes as well. And now I know better. I can raise my grandson in a different way. But sometimes, right, so education, yeah. Education is the key here to help us to deal with the stress that young people bringing home, out of the home, onto the bus. I mean, you can see how angry sometimes some of them on the bus. They're angry. I'm going back to the same stress. School was stressful, and I'm going back to the same stress at home. So home has to fix itself to help produce. You know.
We're speaking about the difference in generations. So you have different times and different models of operandi. You understand? So in each generation, that generation would have come short of certain expectations, but at the same time, they would have had some important values that they would have transmitted. In other words, there would have been some salient and strong points about their generation that would have suited you. Because while we are talking about the whole advancement of technology, we have AI, we have a lot of information, overload of information. In the time past, you also had persons that would develop, and they were professionals, and they did well in their time. In fact, we are complaining that the generation that we have, although they are privy to so many blessings, the fast moving communications, technology at its best, yet still we are complaining that the life now has a lot of disadvantages. We have disrespect, we have disregard for authority, we have, persons in high authority. One of the things I noted very recently is that some of the leaders in our community and people in the United States, in countries, they use F words in their conversation. This would not have happened. Is that acceptable? I mean, the kind of terminologies and the kind of number and the kind of, the bad things that professionals, leaders of countries use a mic, use their platform to say, it's like, this would not have happened. So while there were some negatives in the past, my point is, while we have advanced and we have moved forward, but there are lots of negatives that have come to play. So each generation has its blessing, and lack of a better word, its curses.
I was thinking this someone we blame the young people so much, and we see so many young people going astray.
earlier on the topic of stress, there is one point I want to make, that in both the young age and the old age, that everyone has a limit to the amount of stress that they can take. From the school I go to, there is some people that if you say one thing, they stressed out, their limit break. But it has some people that can withstand it to a certain amount or to a certain period of time. We wouldn't want, that is where suicide will come. We wouldn't want to make them reach to the point where they cannot hold it anymore. So we should try to
reach at a point.
to reach at a common standard to stop it.
Very good. Very good. And if you were here last night, this is one of the areas that I stress, that when we have stress, really, it depends on how our fuse work. Our fuse gets shut up. More stress we get, it's getting more constricted. So it's based on how much it can withstand. So when you see somebody gone off and they flip off, it didn't just happen, The fuse was just there trying to hold on. But when you start having stress overload from one stress to the other, school and financial, and everything coming together, the more problems are coming, but the fuse is getting shorter. So when the fuse cannot take again, it gets shorter, that's when it is. So what you said, one of the very useful things you just said is that people, we need to reach persons at a certain place, and I think that's not what maybe the generation we talk about. We are older generation, as you said, very funny. But are we willing to meet halfway? We cannot even meet our children halfway. Or we can meet a society, a church halfway. And that brings me to the other question for Alicia. I know one of the things I've worked with young people for a long time, and young people tell you sometimes what that stresses them the most is when they think their privacy is invaded. So some parents, because you're in their home, but you're 25, 26 years old, they'll just enter in your room, say whatever they want to say. You're not there. They're looking into your phones and stuff like that. I just want to get your perspective, not from the elderly people now. I want a young person to tell me, what do you think about the erosion of that kind of privacy that you expect? Yes, I am a child or parent, but I am a human being with my own privacy. What would you call privacy, and what are some of those things that will piss you off if you feel that that's taken from you? It's a tight question, but I think you can help us understand. Privacy. I said one of the things young people say, they get very stressed out when they feel that their privacy is being eroded. So parents just feel because you're a child, they can look into your phone, they can come peeping in your room when you're not there, stuff like that. Do you see that as an issue as a young person?
I do see that. I feel like there should be such, well, not understanding, but a relationship where you will be so open with your parents that there will be a need for that. Sometimes, most times, our parents, know better. They're looking out for us. So, yes, I believe in looking through phones and going in your room or when you're about to see what you're home with. I do. But at some point, in the active age, you have to suffer again. But if you have that relationship with your mom or your dad, then that wouldn't be the need for you to not be there to run events and say, oh, I'm not going to do. So yes, it is necessary, but also we the young people, we need to be more open. We feel like giving my space, close the door. But one thing my parents told me when I had my house, I would close my door.
Sherry, do you agree with that? Sherry, and any other young person, I want to get the young people's perspective before any
First is just letting them know the purpose. Right? Everything that I do is because I care about you and I want the best for you. So the actions that I'm taking is for in your best interest. So you can expect me in the future to A, ask you for your phone from time to time, just to make sure that you know you are speaking to persons who you are allowed to speak to, just to make sure that you are doing things that you are allowed to at your age. Right? To make sure that you know from time to time I will come into your personal space just to make sure that things are in order. Right? It's your space, yes, but I just have to make sure that you are a good custodian of that space, that you're doing what you have to suppose that you're sorry, what you're supposed to do. Right? So it's just communication. I believe that you have to have a certain level of privacy, but once again to a certain extent. Because you're at an age where you know you're going out, yes, and you're not your brain is not fully developed, right? So I can't give you the liberty to just make all the decisions for yourself. I want to make sure whatever it is that you're doing the right way and you're doing it safely. So once the communication is there, you understand why it is I'm doing the things I'm doing, right? You have your privacy, yes, but at the same time, it will be invaded from time to time.
Can I have a second on that? I've been there. You're on the way to the other side of the
Yeah, I say that I'm not on the receiving end of parental control when I have my own son. I think what actually I realized myself, obviously there's a big vast world. I was giving the example the other day that when we had homework growing up, I only had an encyclopedia. Only set in an encyclopedia, that was it. Now you've got AI, you've got tools, so there's a vast world of information. So I think that parents do play a role in controlling and monitoring. There's just online safety is a huge issue. The teenagers who are responding to dares on TikTok and Snapchat, and they've had to do a lot of censorship. So I think in the home, that environment of control it's a necessary, almost evil, to ensure that you're keeping the guardrails around your kids, keeping them covered. But I think it's what's maybe changed now is that parents are so, I want to get the right terminology, they're so on it. They're so on to gentle parenting and parenting by consensus that I think they're building better relationships than what we had previously, which is, I tell you, come into your room now, it doesn't matter, I'm coming in now. So there might be more a facilitative approach where you'd be like, oh, I need to talk to you in 10 minutes, and give you 10 minutes, and then I'm coming in. So I think with my own son, I started to nurture that open conversation, which will make it easier for him to understand why I'm going to be, as you say, and I am going to distract the phone. I might be following you in your car, just to make sure, you know, the first few times that you go out, that things are actually happening right. Because there's too much out there for you not to be involved in your children's lives. Okay?
Any other contrary? Yes, go ahead.
I agree with parents having to like go and check in. Me, as a child, I love my personal space. I hate when people come in my room. I hate when they go through my stuff. I dislike it. But I understand that parents, they have to do it to like know your child. But it's the way they react when they do it. So, I mean, my mother, she always goes through my belongings, comes in my room and stuff and checks my thing to make sure I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. But if she sees something she doesn't like, it's the way if she does blow up like it's a big thing. So come, and then it would be my father. My father, he would come around, he would talk to me and he would tell me, oh, you're not supposed to be doing that. So sometimes I think these children, we have they think so much on privacy because of the way we online so much, and when we see parents go and check their picture and thing, we see online their parents blow up, their parents make it a big deal. So now we want our parents, because we don't want our parents to blow up at us, we don't want them to shout at us. So we want to keep to ourselves and have our privacy and like stuff like that. So I think the way they react, it has a lot to play in. Yes.
Because then you're responsible for something like, well, we're the parent today, or something like that. Or who's boss? You know, like tell, communicate
person to teach a class if they themselves have, or teach, let's say, at the secondary school level, when they themselves had not had, let's say, even a primary school education. In other words, we have an expectation, we expect the parents to do so, but they themselves have certain training that didn't allow them to behave otherwise, because they are behaving in the moment the way that they know.
That is why it's servant elevated too. They have a responsibility to educate themselves. Things like what we already know. Someone might say, well, so long they raise their children, they will make that. But you have different kind of children living now, so they have to take a responsibility. I know we are just ready to close up, but I have one last question before we ask.
What about trust in that regard? Do parents trust the children enough?
Communication and trust. And communication part of it is trust. One of the things I think is
name is Rua Alexis. I was saying that since the older people are watching from one perspective and the younger people are watching from a different perspective, but what if we could take those two perspectives and make them watch in a new perspective that will make them both communicate together?
Perspective. So maybe that is our outcome of what we're thinking of, right? So you want something to say, Samir? No? No. Okay. So that is, I think I'm going to the yes. Go ahead. You all are taking your take now. It's not me. I'm trying to finish, but then go ahead.
Regarding the new perspective, I just think it needs to be a concerted effort in all aspects, at home, at work, right? Because you can't expect something to change if you don't put in the effort to have change or to address the issue. For example, we have become very comfortable just always being in our phones. I believe back in the day, there were family dinners, for example, you sit around the table and you just discuss how your day has been. I don't think that's really a thing anymore. Something as simple as that can, bridge communication gap, right? For example, I have a book, just having, for example, capacity building activities, team activities, it's just always making an effort to see how we can initiate conversations activities among, your parents and the family members so that communication can flow. And then,
Communication. Last question, I'm going to start with the lawyer. Everybody, there are some questions that I want to twist a certain way because I'm looking at the age range. I'm the monitor and I'm moving forward. As I said, you like it in the two groups. So I wanted you to be honest with us and say some of the things that you think that the youth of yesterday would be that would assist in stabilizing the mental future for those today. Some of the things that during the time that you were a younger person with your parents, with people in church, with youth, with community, some of the things that existed. What are some of them? At least one or two things that you think that can help to stabilize this generation.
I think perhaps the concept of resilience, I personally have experienced as a very young teen, and I feel like even in the time I was growing up, there was much more resilience to difficulties. So I think a lot of the things that we see, we internalize. So there's been a rise of things like ADHD and depression and anxiety. A lot of these are genuine cases, but a lot of it is what we see. So it becomes normalized to be depressed. It becomes normalized to have medication and really all sorts of drugs. So I think resilience, an internal resilience, is something that worked well for my generation, my peers. I see that we are tougher somehow. There's much more that we can go through, and I think I would encourage young people to look within first, see what solutions exist within your own abilities, your own competence, rather than, AI is the worst. I think people are just getting life tools and life lessons from Google. I've broken up with my boyfriend, what do I do now? I need to do something else, what do I do now? What age should I have children? Like, there is just no internal reflection and internal resilience anymore. So I felt like that worked very well for me, and I would encourage young people to look within first for solutions. Maybe the other thing is just openness. Like, don't see the gap as a negative thing that people want bad for you. But I know my parents are very tough, and as an adult now I realize that this comes from a good place. So when people try to mentor or coach or encourage even elders in the church, be receptive to that, because it usually comes from a good place, especially in that sense of animosity that is something terrible. If you take time, reflect, listen, and respond in a positive way to correction.
Thank you very much.
Okay,
One issue you
I want to go back to myself. I think I need to maybe a testimony of the past. Because one of the things that may be happening with young people do not want to listen to the advice of But one of the things that we need to understand is that we were young too. We were young before you. And we went through things that you have not gone through. And I say that to say that I remember when I was arrested, actually the first person in Vegas that was arrested for marijuana is me. I was posed in a cell right in that building at the other side. And I remember my mother used to walk me so many times with certain friends and certain people. And I was almost shocked. Actually, in that year, around 76, 77, I think I was about 17 or 18 years old at the time. And I started smoking with friends around and all that. And at that time, there was a law that the brass switch you shoot on sight. There was this law that the government had passed, the Dread Act. And the police, they came right up on that side, the two of them. And the police in charge ordered the other police to shoot me. And the guy had the gun pointing at me. And he just chose not to shoot me. He just chose not to shoot me. And he thought the police in charge had a gun in his pocket. But he had it wrapped up in something. But it was too late to take it, because had he had the gun, he would have shot me. And he would have just said he shot me because I resisted. So I would not be here today. So I always say thanks to God. And one of the other things that I know is that in those days, if I was spoken in those days, I would be a power ministry. But I would have shown it in the book. Because I was into that thing. You know, so when parents sometimes talk to you as young people, please take those advice. Because had I listened to my mother, well, you know, men don't really pay attention, but my mother was on my case, and I just wouldn't listen. You know, so take one.
Yes, thank you. Okay, so we're going to go to our last, just your takeaway. I know that we have reached our time. If you have any questions on you wanted to say something before we okay.
To add to what that can be done, like it was back in the day. So I guess the crisis can be put
a better people. And I always say that we want the same young people we have been entertaining with, we want them to be good wives, good husbands. How is it going to happen if we continue to have that gap? The gap is here, it is wide, and I don't think if we do not do something, as I said, we're going to lose from the wise and wisdom of the elderly persons, we are going to lose the culture, but we, the elderly people, we are also going to lose on the vitality and innovation of young people. Something like that. Can you imagine our young people agreeing to teach the older people how to use an iPad, how to use a phone? Sometimes they might because they don't understand. Yeah, but can we not at least decide, just the church, that is something the church can do. One evening where you have younger people and they'll be interested and happy to do that. They'll be laughing at you at first to say, you cannot use a computer. But I can remember the first time when I went to the computer course, I was a good person already. And then I used to say when I put something, I said, it's been gone. It disappeared. And I remember the teacher saying to me, when the last time I knew about the computer, there was no legs, so I do not know where to move. Word is there. You just have to search it. These are simple tools. For us, it's very complex tools because we do not know it, we don't know how to do it. But what if we think of, as I said, coming to a resolution where we have an agreement as the older and the younger to say that this is what exists, but we can move together, come to a common ground where we can share with you what we know, we can listen to you, and we can learn from you. I want us to live here, the young people especially, with the notion that we value what you say, we value your gift. You have what we do not have, but you also need some things that we have. And if we can share this, I think we would have a better church. I think for the church, I would encourage makers for some of those of us who are here. These are some of the conversations we have to start having with our young people. Our young people should not be going to the unsafe people to ask what to do when they have a situation. We don't have crisis. My daughter spoke about crisis at work. These are things that we have in other places. Do we have that? Can you freely go and say that you have a problem at your home and come to work and for people to tell you go home and take a day off? These are simple things that we have to kind of navigate. So as we close up, I want to thank people, but I want to give the participants, I really want to thank you all for, apart from Brother Franklin and Mr. Rui, all the three other people, they just jumped in at the last minute when they didn't know. And you have done so very well. So let us give them a round of applause for a very, 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 very good job. Especially for Pastor, because I already spoke to Pastor this morning. And I mean, this is just, it tells me that we have so much resources. We have gifted people. You listen to these people talking at the front. This is something that you pay money for, I can tell you. Because they are talking to you what they know. It's something that they do not have a book reading, they are just telling you. Shani speaks from a perspective, being a young person, legally she knows what is happening. And you listen to them, and one of the things that came to me is that, of course, we can resign and move forward and listen to those young people. They are bright. I want to thank the older people like my husband and brother from Egypt. None of us, none of you all have what they have. They have started children, they have raised children, they have taught children.
Let me explain that. See, God is the beginning and the source of everything. The gap between man and his progressive life started when man sinned. That was separated, and that gap continues to exist. If we return to God, we don't have any problem. Shambach used to say, we don't have any problem. All you need is believe in God.
So thank you very much. Give me a
My message would be let us be young people and be older generation meet each other in the middle.
Middle ground.
Middle ground. I won't take some from there.
Thank you. Give a Carry something behind. Go ahead.
Well, it's actually a quote that I heard today. I don't remember who said it, but it was, if you want to change your world, go home and love your family. So everything stems from the family. So if you really want to see a change, then let's just start at home.
Go stand at home.
What I think is we need to develop more communication between the older generation and the new one. The aspect of respect for each other, we need to develop it more.
Thank you very much.
The point of view would be on both ends to listen and share. So listen to the point of views, share your life, share your experiences, share your voice, share your opinions, share your rules, share your corrections, but ultimately we listen and share.
Amen, amen. Did you all have a good time tonight? Yes. I'm very happy that you came, and we are looking forward to maybe something bigger than that, where we can meet other people. But one of the things I really want to come from that is a mentorship program. So I'm actually developing something like a mentorship program. I'm going to send it as a few persons who will want to be mentors to help young people. And I'll also be asking some young people that think that they need mentoring. I heard it from last night, someone came to me, you do not know what people are going through until they tell you. And I do not think the church should fail our young people. We should have a mentorship program. We should have it. We talk, but we don't mentor. Because as soon as they come, we want to see all their faults, their clothes too short, their back out. These are the things that we complain about. All sometimes they want to do is to be heard, to feel significant, to feel respected. And then we want to look for good people that can mentor and people that are willing. So thank you very much to Ibo for taking us live, and to those of you who joined me. We really want to say thanks for listening and give us some views. Anybody, even after this program, we are open. As I said when I started, this has been a